Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast, Bold Faced Friends. I'm Penny, and you're also with.
Hi, Kelsey. And today we will be talking about something that I think a lot of people with facial differences and disabilities in general will be able to relate to, and that is the topic of misconceptions. And people thinking that we can or can't do something based based solely on what we look like. And I think it's happened, definitely has happened to me many, many times. And I think a lot of people talk about it as well in the disability community. So it's something that we really wanted to tackle today and discuss, and maybe enlighten people, and maybe people will kind of start to think about these things. And next time you see someone who maybe looks different, you won't kind of have these misconceptions. So I think that's what we're hoping to do today. Um, so Penny, I will ask you, what kind of misconceptions do you think you have come across over your life, or in the recent 10 years, or whatever you want to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the disability community in general. I find this topic is really discussed. I've seen it discussed primarily in terms of wheelchair users who have a giant list of assumptions. So I think it's good that we tackle it from a visible difference in terms of able-bodied kind of way, because obviously there's nothing that should, even with wheelchair users, shouldn't be anything that leads people to believe that somebody can or can't do something. And it's the assumptions that lead to various actions that elicit anger and frustration, and the change that we want to bring about. I guess having a visible difference in terms of a facial difference, I honestly don't know what goes on in people's minds to lead them down the path of where they go. Um, I don't get it, but the assumptions that are that I'm cognitively impaired, as well as having a facial difference. So
That that
they
is,
equate.
yeah, number
They
one.
exactly. So they equate. Um, I don't want to say intelligence because that's also not appropriate, but they equate uh, general world understanding at a lower level because I look different than if, like, I don't know what's going on, or I can't speak for myself, or whatever, is really the big one. I guess the only other one that I get that you probably don't get, and this might be an assumption of mine, and forgive me, is I'm short stature. Like, I'm not officially diagnosed as, I don't have dwarfism or anything, but I'm very short. I'm very little. I'm barely 5 feet on a good day, or 152 centimeters for our fellow Canadians or Europeans or anybody other than the U.S. So I'm really, really tiny. So the other thing that I get is that I'm not an adult. So they say that I'm a kid. So I got both of those, the two assumptions that I have to deal with. How about you?
I actually, now that you say that, I was, oh my goodness, um, I was out somewhere. Oh, I know. I was at Tim Hortons. I don't know why all my stories involve Tim Hortons or like some kind of coffee joint, but that's who I am as a person. I was at Tim Hortons with my mom like months ago now, and the cashier lady, she was actually really sweet and like really nice, and she asked me, I don't know, I can't remember what like was going on in the conversation, but she asked me like how old I was, and I was like 29, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were like 17." And I was like, "Well, I mean, I wish I was, but no."
Yeah, I've gotten there at Costco before on a couple of occasions, and there's been two occasions actually, which is still two more than it should have been, where like when you go for a sample, they
Yeah.
they ask where my parents are.
Yep. That's happened to me before too. However,
Yeah, and then generally when I'm going out to a restaurant with, well, which obviously we haven't done, but when I go to a restaurant, uh, because I do have I am hard of hearing, I tend to just, unless I absolutely have to be the one that speaks, I won't. So I'll kind of hang back. And I guess because I'm really short and I'm really petite, they just assume I'm whoever's I'm with kids. So they'll always ask her like, "Oh, does she need a kids menu?" I'm like, no, but I'll get the drink menu, thanks. Can I get a Ryan Coke? Yeah, like it doesn't happen. I find these interactions only happen when I'm with somebody. If they're forced to interact with me, sans anything else, any other person or whatever, um, they're forced to talk to me, and they're forced to acknowledge that clearly I'm not a kid, or they don't make that assumption that I'm aware of. There hasn't been any time where it's, other than trying to get a sample at Costco, there hasn't been really any other interactions where when I'm alone, I'm faced with the assumption that I'm a kid or that I can't speak for myself usually. I want to say it's not as overt as if when I'm with somebody. I think they probably change their speech pattern, or they handle themselves differently with me than they would the person before me. The other instances I've gotten where they just completely ignore me. Like I'm alone, I'm in a line, and they just completely ignore me and serve somebody else. And that's frustrating. But yeah, the assumptions that I'm not capable of having conversations while I'm with somebody else is the biggest one that I think we deal with. That's really annoying.
yeah, I think that too, and like the Costco thing, that actually has happened to me too, and like not in the past like few years, I'd say, but I'd say even like 5 years ago it probably was happening still. And I don't think it was because they thought I was like a kid. Maybe they didn't, I don't know. But I think it was because they thought that I was like
Not able to make the decision by
like
yourself.
cognitively impaired, and which I mean obviously you shouldn't treat anyone like that. Like don't assume that about anyone. But they did. So and actually like I was at the registry like a week or so ago because I had to remove my car my license plate, or like my car registration basically. And so you have to go to the registry and like register your car every year, and it's super annoying. But so anyway, I'm in line at the registry, and I was asking my dad because we had to do something else, so like he just came with me, and this lady who works at the registry came out, and she was talking to people in line, asking why, like, what they were there for, if they had like documentation, stuff like that. And it was September 29th. Yeah, September 29th, because you have to register your card by the end of the month, like by September 30th. So, people like me had left it until the end of the month, and that's whatever. So anyway, she was asking people like if they needed their card registration done, if that's why they were there, if they had like documentation, stuff like that. And when she got to me, I'm holding the little like card thing, the registration and my car insurance, like in my hand, and the lady like looks at me, she kind of like looks past me, I guess, and she starts talking to my dad, and she's like, oh, like, car registration, and he was like, yeah, and she's like, oh, do you have your insurance and whatever, and he like looks at me, and he's like, it's actually her car, and she has the insurance and whatever. And the lady just like looked at me, and she was like, okay, and like moved on. Like, okay, okay, pal. And but I mean, like that literally happens. Like probably every time I go out with someone. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Any time that I'm with somebody, whether it's my sister or a friend, um, it's if I have to talk. It's slightly different around like the stores that I live around, where I've been to enough times where they know me. Any new place, even if I go to like the mall, which I don't frequent very often, even before COVID, I didn't go very often. It's if I'm with somebody, I went to. I guess some more recent example is I went to Sport Check, which is a name brand chain store here in Canada that's like sports apparel and stuff like that.
mm-hmm.
And I was looking for new running shoes. And I'm very hard fit, so I definitely need to try on all of the shoes to find the right one. I'm very hard fit. So I was asking for a pair, and I was the one asking the questions. I was asking, do they have it in a different color? What sizes do they have? All of this, like all the questions were coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
The salesperson went and looked at my friend Donna and literally answered every single question that I had to her as if she was the one that was speaking. And any follow-up questions she asked of Donna, not to me. And Donna was like getting annoyed because Donna has she's an amputee, but hers is hidden. It's one of her legs, so when she's not wearing shorts or anything, she's just you can't tell. Like it's not a visible difference. It's not a visible disability. So she knows the shit that you go through being disabled. She's gone through similar. So she was getting quite annoyed. And at one point she was like, she's the one asking you the questions, not me. But I'm not looking for shoes.
Yeah.
So having to have someone flat out say, like what your dad did, like it's for this person, is frustrating. So it's definitely, you know, it's a problem. It's a reoccurring theme and a reoccurring problem that happens.
Yep. Yeah, and like, I mean, it happens like even if I go to like restaurants or
Oh yeah.
fast food places or anything. It's like I will say something to order, and they will look at whoever I am with and like ask them questions like, "Oh, like, do you want this?" or like whatever, and it's like, no, like, hello, like, why? So, I mean, I don't know. I just it's frustrating um when when people just like make assumptions that like we don't understand them or like I don't know. Or like when people um I used to encounter this at work sometimes. When people like they're talking to you and they talk really slowly and like louder than they normally would. It's like, okay, well, don't remember.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if I've gotten that.
you know,
Yeah, so it's it's definitely more they just refuse to talk to me at all, or they talk to the other person. It's not something that I've had to. I've heard of it happening, and I know people. Obviously, you've gone through it, but for some reason, I don't know if it is because I'm hard of hearing, so I can't really necessarily tell if they are speaking louder or necessarily slower.
mm,
Um, and I don't necessarily mind the slower speech just because I am hard of hearing, so it means that I don't have to say what so
right,
many times.
right,
But making that assumption, I would imagine, would be just as frustrating as anything else. And
yeah.
um, I think the other big assumption, and one that kind of happened before we started recording, and I
Oh,
know it's still going to be an episode that we talk about in future, is the assumption that because of the way that somebody looks is determinant of their character. Meaning, if there is somebody in the news, as there is today, who is accused of a crime, so has allegedly done something, and they look a certain way, people will literally latch on to the way that person
yep,
looks and not the alleged crime or the crime they've been convicted of, because that's happened. Um, it also happens a lot with President Trump, as much as I despise that man with every fiber of my being. A lot of times they'll talk about, or even other candidates, they'll talk about the way that they look as to being some measure of that person, and that's really damaging, uh, because there is generally a reason for the alleged crimes, and or they've been convicted, or they are just an asshole. There's a lot of things to go after other than the way that somebody looks.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And um, one of the uh, I can't remember exactly what the comment was now, but like basically it was like
Oh, they knew. Oh,
I knew they were evil when I looked at them or something like this, and like sorry, I didn't know that you could tell someone was evil by looking at them.
I'm not gonna say the person's name, because that's at the end of the day, if you really want to know, just follow either of us on Twitter, because after we're done recording this, her and I are both going back to Twitter and having at it. The person's comment was, "Didn't this guy play a villain in one of the Bond movies?" Was one. The other one that
But
you're
they're
looking
not
at.
looking evil.
Yeah, I know.
I can't get that.
Oh, and yeah, never mind, I found it. No one could have guessed a man who looks like this could be evil.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And that's apparently this person is a writer. A novelist and a writer. Cool.
Wow.
That person's going to be getting a mouthful from both of us when we're done here. But here's another one that came. I didn't even realize this story is 4 hours old. My God, what happened to him?
I was in that one.
Was his face run over by a transport truck? So,
I
guys,
like that.
this is literally something that happened just before we hit record. Kelsey and I were discussing it before we, and it kind of fit right into it.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, this guy totally looks like a Bond villain.
Like a soulless psychopath.
Yeah, like Bond villain. Yeah, the Bond series did really nothing for those of us with a facial difference. Let's just say that. But again, that's a topic for another. But these are the assumptions that Kelsey is talking about that are made just without even thinking about it. Nobody, I guarantee you, Kelsey and I are going to go ham on this after we're done, and we're going to reply to each and every one of them. And the people who wrote them aren't going to be like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't really think about that." Like, we'll be lucky if one of them says that. I'll give somebody the benefit of the doubt, but heart of hearts, I'm going to assume not one person is going to recognize our lived experience, recognize what we're saying, and apologize. They're going to get defensive, and they're going to be like, well, this guy did something, whatever. Like, he's allegedly committed some crimes or whatever. The whole point is it doesn't matter who it is, what they did. The fact that you're making comments solely based and about his looks and associating it with iconic characters in movies, which again is another topic for another day, is the narrative that needs to change, and it's a narrative that angers me so much.
Yeah.
So much.
I don't get it. Like, people just, they say stuff like this and like publicly comment that. Do you not think about it? Like, do you not?
That's from they don't care. They don't. It's not their lived experience.
Yeah.
And even when somebody brings it, and I shouldn't have to be polite or diplomatic, and that's going to be another thing that's going to be brought up, because it's not going to be about the message. It's going to be about, I'm attacking them, or I didn't read the story, or I can play through all of the defenses because it's ones I've heard before, and it's not going to be, Dan, you're right, I never thought about that, I'm really sorry, followed by a deletion of their tweet, or an edit of their, or not, they can't edit it, but they can respond to it. It's not going to be that. It's going to be them continuing to defend what they've said, and they're going to continue to do it, because until as a society we agree that it's not okay, then it's going to continue to be an issue.
Yeah. And then, yeah, people don't, they're not generally like open-minded to be like, oh yeah, like, you know what, I didn't think about that. It would be like, oh well, like, you didn't think the story, or like, well, you look weird too. Or like, oh shit. And it's like, sorry.
No, I
Right.
I forgot about that. And I'm like, yeah, that's gonna happen. I'm sure there'll be a few of those.
But I mean, like, but like, people are so ignorant, and that's what is um what yes, disappointing, but also like frustrating, and it's a piss off, really. Like it's
Yeah, and there's gonna be people, including my friends and family, who I'm sure are gonna be like, well, why did you even respond to them? And that's the other thing we have to do, and that's the other side of the coin is uh, I'm not going to. I could just I already know how the conversations are going to go in my head, so I technically don't need to actually have them in real life. But then I wouldn't be doing myself a favor as an advocate or kids growing up now with facial differences to make this world a better place, because I'm of the mind, if you see something, say something. If even one of those people who I'm going to reply to in the next hour or two says, you know what, I'm right, I'm sorry, then it would have been worth it. If the other one, like, I get that it's uncomfortable to be shown a different way of thinking that you didn't think about, that puts you on a defensive. But again, human psychology, I get it. But the proper thing to do is like stop, breathe, learn. And that's all you need to do. I don't care if, like, I'm not following these people. I don't know if they're going to continue to do it. If they just lie to my face and go, yeah, you're totally right. They could just do that and the world would be a better place. Like, I don't, like, it doesn't need to be what it is. And I don't know how to make it better, because it just feels like nobody cares. I said it before and I'll say it again. It feels like I'm talking to a void, because the lot of good it's done in my 30 odd years, or, I'd say I've been a strong advocate probably for the last like 20 years. I can't say that I see any change, honestly. Like, there's still no real rules for people with disabilities, whether it's facial difference or otherwise. There's still movies being made where they continue to cast non-disabled people in disabled roles. They're still using facial difference as a product of villainy, or as a indicator of villainy. It's still the same old carousel that we're on. So I say something when I see it, because who knows, one day it might stick somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's I mean, I've done a ton of like advocacy stuff too, and like I've done news and stuff, and like all of this, and it's like, but I mean, like, what difference is it making? Is it making a difference? I don't know. But when you look at all these movies coming out with the villain having a facial difference, or like even like we were talking about this like a couple weeks ago, The Lion King, which is one of my favorite movies. But The Lion King, the villain, whose name is Scar, has a facial scar, and
Like, they went all out with that one. So.
that's what makes him evil. Or that's not what makes him evil, I guess. But that's what makes him appear evil, I guess. And like,
Well, and I think that, like, I think Lion King is a different type of example, is because
it's animated.
they could have taken out his scar and named him something different, and he would have still just been as evil. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Really hope.
that's that's what gets me with Lion King. Um, and I guess that's kind of a good segue because next week, guys, it'll be our last episode for season 1. And we thought that for each season finale of our podcast, we would tackle a movie. So we'll watch it. We won't watch it together. Maybe if we get really popular and there's more subscribers, maybe we'll do a live watch one day, 1 year, 1 century, whatever.
Yeah.
Way in the future. But her and I will be watching the movie separately and then coming together to discuss it. I don't know what, I'll have to research how to add the clips and what goes on and try to avoid copyright and editing process and all that fun stuff. But we will be tackling a movie. I don't know if I want to give it away what movie we're doing, but I will say we are going to watch a movie and then dive deep into the movie, like our honest review of the movie and how it relates to why the character has like it. We're only focusing on movies where the character is marked as a villain because of a facial difference, because that's our shtick. So if you have a movie suggestion, please put it down in the comments. We already have this one selected, but we're happy to go with others as well in the future.
For the end of next season. I'm excited. I think it will be a really good conversation and get to like break it down as to like the theory behind why they made this character have a facial difference and what that says to people and what that represents. And so yeah, no, I'm excited. It will be good. So keep an eye out for that. And we are almost at an hour-ish. So we should probably wrap this up. But is there any other comments that you have about
any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts.
I think the only closing thoughts that I would have is I want this podcast to do well. I think it can do well. So if you are one of our regular listeners or watchers, I know, guys, that this isn't on Spotify. And again, I hopefully will have that rectified by season 2. But if you can share it, like it, comment, subscribe if you haven't. If you're like a long time listener but no subscriber, please do, because it goes back to I kind of feel like I'm talking to the void. I know there's been a few times where our episodes haven't been as consistent, and at the end of the day, no, and it's not necessarily I'll some of the blame for that. It's just it's hard to feel motivated when there's no audience.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So
it's kind of like what's the point of doing this if no one's watching? So if you are watching, please do let us know by commenting or like whatever.
Sharing it, more importantly, sharing it, getting other people to watch it, because I knew that this was going to be something that would be slow to take off, and I think I just have to remind myself of that what we're doing is really good. I enjoy doing it. I think it's cathartic. So I have no problem with keeping it going as long as I have breath. But I do kind of hope and want and wish for it to find an audience. So please help us. We need your help.
Yeah, so comment, like, share, subscribe, whatever you like to just to let us know that someone is listening, someone's watching, someone's taking away something.
Yeah, if there was something specific that we talked about that really resonated with you, let us know. If there is something that we touched on that you would like us to elaborate on, because sometimes we just hippity hop to different things, then again, let us know. Because at the end of the day, if we can find an audience to engage with, I think that's going to add another layer to the conversation and another layer to build on, and will be more meaningful, I think, as well.
Yeah, and it will connect. It's not just us talking, it will be like us connecting with an audience. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was the only finishing thought that I had. So
Awesome. And I echo that. If you are watching and you appreciate this podcast, again, like, share, comment, subscribe, and it really would be a lot to us. So, yeah, we would really appreciate it. So, thank you everyone for watching this week's episode, and we will be back next week with the season finale. So, again, thank you all so much for watching and listening.
I guess.
Bye.